All right, guys, welcome back to the Empowered PAs podcast. My name is Courtney and I am your hostess, but I have two friends to bring with me today. I'm super excited. If you're listening, my friends are Chris Watson and Becky Popiel. They are new friends to Empowered PAs. If you're watching, we actually have this. If you're listening, we have this. We'll have this on YouTube and on the website at EmpoweredPAs.com. They are here too. You guys want to say hi?
Hey, everyone.
Hi, good to see everybody.
Yeah, so I'm super excited. If you have been following the blog, you may already know who Becky is. Becky is a pre-PA, and she joined our blogging team, I don't know, maybe a couple weeks ago, and we're providing some really good content there. I'm super excited to bring her on board. She's very active in the pre-PA community. Chris is our FAPA president, very much in the leadership role as a PA, and fits very nicely into the Empowered PAs motif. And so I'm super excited to have him here as well. We thought it would be super fun to just kind of introduce everyone, if you don't know what Empowered PAs is, kind of tell you what we're all about, and then kind of tell you what our thoughts are on what the future is for Empowered PAs, because let me tell you, life is hard in medicine right now. And so we're trying to branch out, make it easier, kind of expand, and I was hopeful to try to get you guys some different opinions too, because I ramble on this podcast a lot. So Chris, let's start with you, because you have a couple podcasts already kind of in the bucket. We're going to hear a lot from you pretty soon. So why don't you tell us all about you and kind of what you do and what your thoughts are for the future of Empowered PAs.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, of course, my name's Christopher Watson, PA. I've been practicing for 10 years now and practicing here in the Pensacola area, Pensacola, Florida. Have majority of my career has been orthopedics. I've done some urgent care and then some academia. But as you alluded to earlier, I've been active in the Florida Academy of PAs for the past 5-6 years now. Was previous treasurer and now current president. And so that's kind of how our paths somewhat cross between some mutual friends and of course, following you on the Instagram. But, me knowing that you're doing a lot of good work with Empowered PAs and what it stands for, and kind of similar what I do in from the FAPA standpoint is representing as far as the Florida PAs. I know this is a little bit all PAs here, which is also what I'm about as well. And so kind of from my standpoint, I'm big in PA advocacy and promoting the PAs from that standpoint. That's kind of been my passion, like pushing or trying to help everybody, including myself, but everybody, take that next step, whatever that next step may be, whether it's at furthering your education, furthering your, entrepreneurship as a PA, or even just, leadership within PAs, or, what's the administrative standpoint within your hospitals and clinics and things like that. Because one of my big things that I've been on here lately, and obviously in my role, is leadership. So I'm real big on PA leadership.
Yeah, we love having you. It's funny because I've had an administrative role as a PA, so I work half clinical in the pediatric emergency department, half administrative, but I don't have as much experience in the leadership side. And so, Chris, you and I have had a lot of conversations about what it looks like to be a PA leader and kind of what that, how to move practicing PAs that are currently kind of on the front lines and maybe looking to go the next step, how to provide them the tools for leadership. And so I always love talking to you and kind of getting your insight with your experience. So really glad to have you on board.
Yeah, and I'm excited to be here and hopefully can contribute to a lot, that not only for the Empowered PAs, but just for PAs throughout the country.
Absolutely. And Miss Becky, why don't you introduce yourself to the YouTube crowd if they haven't heard you, to our podcast group? Our bloggers know about you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Becky Popiel. I am a non-traditional untraditional senior. I'll be graduating this December with my bachelor's in biology and chemistry. I joined the Empowered PA groups few weeks ago, maybe a month, less than 2 months ago, but I met Courtney through Instagram, social media. So I always say networking is important as a pre-PA. So as a pre-PA myself, I applied this cycle and I'm waiting to hear back from schools to get an interview. Hopefully end up getting into a PA school and getting started next year. If not, there's always next year. I have worked in the healthcare field for a little bit over 10 years. I have worked in a hospital setting and for 8 of those years, and then in a clinical setting for those other 2. I love being a pre-PA. It's almost like I love it more than I just want to kind of stay here in my little comfort zone. But I know that's just the start of it because I've gotten so well and so used to being a pre-PA all these years. But my passion grew from working in healthcare. I definitely was exposed to a lot of healthcare fields, healthcare positions, providers, nurses, CT techs, like everything. And so I definitely knew what I wanted to do. And the PA profession definitely spoke out to my heart. I currently volunteer with multiple organizations. I am a full-time student taking 15 credits on my last semester. I took 14 credits this past summer, so I'm definitely busy, but never too busy to help out fellow pre-PAs. My whole goal and dream is to share my journey. It's non-traditional. I am a minority, a Latina, so definitely I have a perspective from a very interesting view. So definitely want to share those experiences with other students, as well as being a first-gen student. I know the struggle of not having that role model there to help you out, to help you, first-gen student kind of thing. You have no one to go to. So I want to share everything I've gained in these last 10 years with other pre-PAs in the same shoes and other pre-PAs who might not know of certain things that are available for us, whether it's scholarships, virtual that Courtney has provided. There's tons of resources out there. So I kind of want to be a little Google machine for them and help them out.
So Becky, I got a quick question for you. You keep saying non-traditional. What's making you non-traditional PA student?
So in my definition of a non-traditional, what's made me is that I graduated high school at the age of 16. I only went to high school 3 years. I come from in an underserved area of medical desert. I graduated high school 17 years ago. So I've been in and out of college for years and I've learned many lessons. I am 34 years old. I've worked in healthcare for 10 years and I thought what I wanted to do. And it's a funny story how I actually got into the whole healthcare field. I think it's funny, but it happened to be a passion and it turned, as opposed to, I'm just looking for a job that I can make good money at, to becoming a lifelong passion and finding what worked for me. And I'm married, I have stepchildren, I have siblings, I have 13 nieces and nephews. So I'm not straight out of high school, fresh little young chick. So I definitely have had some life experiences.
So I bring that up because, it's not until the last probably 10 years that PAs were coming straight from college into the master's level, the graduate level.
Mm-hmm.
It was actually, you were expected to have at least minimum 2 to 3 years of experience prior to applying. So that's why I bring that up, not only for, just asking you, but for other pre-PAs that might end up listening or watching to this, to know that you don't always go straight from undergrad into PA school. There's a lot of people, myself included, that were married and had at least 2 or more years of experience in life, which you just expressed there prior to going to PA school. And Courtney, I think you have a similar story yourself, correct?
Yeah, so it's funny, the term non-traditional, I'm glad you asked that question because it confused me when I first heard of it, because way back when I was applying to PA school, you're right, it was kind of expected that you had a couple years under your belt. But there were many students in my class back in 2009 that did go straight. They were working clinically, they like as CNAs or had some level of like a certification that allowed them to work at the same time of doing their undergraduate degree, and they went right into the PA program. But I was a paramedic, I was an EMT, I was a 911 dispatcher, and then at the same time volunteering as an EMT, and then worked as an EMT and went to paramedic school. And then also I applied a little bit later. I think I was like maybe 27. So there's definitely I find that and Becky, I'm sure you can appreciate this, but I find that the students that apply to PA school that have that like life experience, I feel like they get it a little differently, right? You have that experience to kind of make you have a comfort level interacting with patients just at a baseline, right? And I think that that's really important. So I love the idea of non-traditional students, right? That's why we get along, right?
Well, I think the true non-traditional students are the ones going from straight to undergrad to the grad school. So I think we need to flip the definition there.
Don't throw a monkey wrench in it, okay? No, it's a good point. And I think anybody who really thinks about like their track, because many students, and Chris, we've done these virtual shadowing events, we do them every month. And so I've been very plugged into the pre-PA world especially in the past year. You kind of talk to them and a lot of them figured out what a PA was in their like junior year of undergraduate. And so they didn't start, undergrad thinking they were going to be a PA. They really learned about it. They started pre-health. They thought they were pre-med or pre-vet, and then they start to learn more. So yeah, it's an interesting aspect of the profession, but I kind of like it. I think it makes us unique.
Well, you mentioned something too, that you've been really involved with the pre-PA students, and that's where Becky has kind of came in from that standpoint. And so I think that's where you're talking about introducing us and us as part of the team. And that's where I think you're going to see a lot of good balance between those that are visiting the website, visiting the podcast, and seeing that there's going to be a different balance. There's going to be that hey, this is for those pre-PAs or people thinking to go to PA school or PA students. And then you're going to get the other side of it too, between all of us, the practicing PA and what we're experienced as a practicing PA and what to expect as a practicing PA and things we've learned, like lessons learned, man. I can't tell you how many I chalked that up as a lesson learned, won't never do that again. And so hopefully we'll have some time to, at some point, to kind of share those experience, throughout different episodes and, throughout this venture.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the pandemic is still going on. And so we are, all three of us are still very busy. And so it's nice to have kind of that balance and that mixture of content. So I think I'm really, really excited to kind of see how we grow and how we move forward. On that same note, Chris, what would you say is like the thing you're excited to work on next that you can kind of envision for the site or for the podcast or videos, or what's your thoughts?
So I'm really, like, as I mentioned, I'm really big in PA leadership. So you'll see me tend to go towards any type of leadership topics, how to develop yourself as a leadership, what to do in a leadership role. And that, and also I'll mention several times, and I'll mention tonight that, there's times where you're like, well, I don't want to do administration. I don't want to be that person. But you as a PA, by definition, you're already a leader. Yeah. There'll be times where I'll go through it deeper, but, I'm also a PA in the Army Reserve. So the structure that's set up, you're already I went into the Army as a captain. I'm already in that leadership role, like right away. And so you're in that same role as yourself in your clinic. So you have, whether it's nurses or medical assistants or things like that you're, whether what state you're in, you're overseeing and the whole process and you're in control. Especially depending on what setting you're in, in surgery, you and your surgeon are the leaders, of course, the hierarchy, the surgeons, the higher ranking, so to speak. But then in the kind of the hierarchy of that, then you, and then the other kind of trickle down, but it's still a team. So I don't say that you're better than somebody, but it's a team, but there is still a hierarchy of how this is set up. And so you'll see different things like that. And then, of course, from advocacy, there'll be some hot topics that I'll get just passionate about. Hey, I got to speak about this. And so, I'll do whether it's a blog or a podcast or something contributing to the topic, because it'll just resonate with me. And I think I got to get something out on this because it's something that's, if it's resonating with me, I assume it's resonating with some of you out there.
Yeah, I'm super excited for some of that stuff too, because even you and I don't always agree on some of those topics, but I think opening up that conversation and just like talking about it and getting people engaged will be super interesting. So I'm very, very excited to.
Oh, and what's great about that is that you don't have to necessarily agree, because then I get to see a side that, I didn't think about that or this, that, and the other. And so what's great is that you get to learn off each other. And what I've learned over the years is that you don't have to agree. You don't always have to agree. So.
Nope. That's, exactly. And that's what makes the world go round, and that's what makes us all unique. So we're very glad to have you. I'm very excited to see the good stuff you have coming out. I've kind of given Chris carte blanche with the podcast. You may hear a lot more of him than you will of me, because I'm still working in the ER in a pandemic. But this is kind of going to grow as we move forward in time, and so I'm very excited. So thank you for all the work that you've done, all of your service, and for joining the team, because I'm very excited to have you with us.
Yes, thank you, Chris. I'm excited because I get access to two amazing PAs with so much experience, and it's every little pre-PA's dream to just have mentors like yourself. And even though I'm well seasoned in healthcare and even in pre-PA stuff, there's that, to me, that's just like barely scrapes the surface of what the PA profession is. And I love that. I'm grateful for both of you.
Becky, and you have been one of those people that when we connected, I was like, oh, I like her. I was like, weird. And if you don't know, Becky has been, so last July of 2020, we started doing these virtual shadowing events, and I figured out that, as we were doing them, I needed somebody to kind of help run the chat and kind of deal with the tech side of it. And Becky eventually kind of moved into that position and has been a huge help. And the more I learned about her, the more I got to know her, the more I was just like, oh, we are simpatico, man. Like,
yeah.
So you have a lot of amazing ideas. You and I have also had a lot of chats. Tell me what your thoughts are, what you're kind of excited for with EmpoweredPAs, and kind of what you see coming for the future.
So what I'm excited about is being involved from the ground floor up and sharing my story from the get-go. So, I'm pre-PA. I may be, like I said before, well seasoned, but this is the start of the PA journey for me. It's pre-PA, then PA student, then new grad PA, then seasoned PA. So I'm excited to bring everybody and anybody on that journey, because I love to be open. I love to be transparent. I love to be honest, and I love to share that journey, because many people just don't know how to ask for help, or don't know how to say, hey, can you review this for me? Or can you look at this for me? Or, hey, where did you find that? And I felt throughout the pandemic, as we got shut down, especially here in Texas, everything went sideways. I found myself, okay, now what do I have to do? Two of my in-person PA shadowing got canceled. Their offices weren't allowing. And so I kind of had to figure out what to do next. And then, so of course, I started looking around, I started Googling, I created a document that had all sorts of resources from shadowing, who's doing shadowing online, whether it's pre-PA, pre-med, pre-dental. I always feel that, it's always great to shadow the profession that you want to go into, but also, in general medicine, kind of, you can learn something if you go to a pre-med virtual shadowing thing, it's just, and so I created that. I created resources, because also volunteering wasn't available for in person. I know a lot of schools, whether pre-med or pre-PA or pre-PT, require volunteering. So long story short, I had resources to volunteer, how to contact PAs, how to be polite to PAs. And during a pandemic, if you're going to reach out to someone, the importance of networking, having a LinkedIn page, creating your CV, and just a lot of resources. So I felt guilty holding that on for myself. And my husband was like, no, they're your competition. Don't tell them of all those great resources you found. And I'm like, my story speaks for itself. I nobody's going to have what I have to say, what I have to give to the profession. So I don't see it as a competition. I kind of see where he was coming from, but I see it as like, these are the people that I may be working next to, being in class next to. So I want them to succeed. I want them. And I know that debilitating feeling of not knowing what to do, not knowing who to reach out to. So I started sharing. I became active on Instagram, which I never really was. And then little by little, my people started following and messaging me. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. And I started creating group meets and just to chat with people, pre-PAs here in Texas. And we all had the similar questions. Everybody had the same questions. And I'm like, oh, I have the answers. Here you go. And so that really gave people the confidence to reach out. And I said, hey, you know what? PAs are there to help. They want to help, but just be polite about it. So I definitely want my journey to be kind of like a historical thing, kind of taken down somewhere, so people can go 10 years from now and look like oh, are there any non-traditional Latinas who did it, who made it, and women in healthcare, women in science and STEM. So I want to be as open as possible with that part of my life, with that part of my journey. That way I can say, hey, you know what, I turned around and helped someone else out. So also just I'm a huge advocate and a huge proponent for getting involved with the PA profession, even as a pre-PA. I'm always telling everybody when I'm moderating Courtney's virtual shadowing sessions, get involved with your state PA organization. Even I'm even part of the New Jersey, the New York ones as a pre-PA, because they're always having conferences, free stuff for students. So I want them to get involved. And I feel like even with everything with COVID going on now, I feel like everybody who's experiencing COVID, things like this now, those are my future patients. So whenever in the summer I had downtime, I would attend COVID webinars. I would attend webinars on equality and just gender equality, healthcare equality. So I love healthcare. I love being a part of it. And I definitely want to share those tips, experience, and I'm not afraid of saying, I don't know the answer, but let me find it for you. So if I can help anybody in that way, I want to be that person to help.
And I'm excited to hear your voice because I know some of your story, and I'm excited to kind of see you grow and move through the process of, you've applied already, and hopefully, things will move forward. And I know you're going to get picked up by an amazing PA program, and I'm excited for you to go through that process and kind of share it with everybody, because you're right. It's a journey, it's a challenge, and I love your perspective. I love that you advocate for the profession, and you're not, you're plugged in as a pre-PA, but it's amazing to see pre-PAs getting involved in state PA professions, professional associations, national PA professional associations. You were on the HOD call when they talked about name change too, right? I mean, that's amazing.
Yep.
Chris,
And
amazing.
I was there too. Yeah, that was an eye-opening experience right there.
It was.
Yeah, and not only about how the House of Delegate works, and those of you that may listen may wonder what's HOD, House of Delegates, but with AAPA, the American Academy of Physician Assistants / Associates, we're all working on that name change now, and that's what we're kind of alluding to, is that that was a big hot topic, a big contentious topic within our profession. I know that, overwhelmingly majority wanted to see a name change. There was probably about a less than 20% that didn't want it to change at all. Probably, I think it was around 14% that didn't want any change. But the issue was what that name would be. And that was the very contentious part of that. I don't know if we've ever had in the past an HOD session where such debated and such a passionate topic. And that's you mentioned Becky that you got on Instagram with your story, looking that up, and I kind of got started with the professional page shortly during that time frame. And then I remember just posting a topic about it, just a video topic, and all of a sudden, like overnight, I went from just having the page to, and I know it's not a lot compared to many others, but just overnight had like 250 followers like that. And I was like, wow, I touched a nerve here, in not a bad way, people following and wanted to, obviously hear and learn more about it. And so I've been kind of quiet for a while, but trying to build it back up. So I have a question for you, Courtney. So I don't know the story, but how did you kind of get going with Empowered PAs? Where did this, come from, and kind of, this started? What was the idea for you?
Yeah, it's a long story sort of, but a couple years ago, as I moved, so I worked in emergency medicine and general ER for 4 years. I knew I was getting burned out and I needed to change, so I ended up going to a pediatric emergency department. And that was amazing for a little bit, but I knew I wanted to do this administrative side. I knew I wanted to step away from the bedside a little bit, and so I took on some projects, and that kind of grew into a 50-50 split of my time. My hospital was kind enough to give me some hours to dedicate to this administrative role, and I didn't know what I was doing in the sense of like, I knew what I was doing. I was working on clinical pathways and I had a complete plan for that, but I had never been in business meetings or in these, being at the table with executives and the C-suite people. And it was an entirely new language for me. And I felt very much like a fish out of water, because you're not taught that stuff in PA school. Like, you're not taught about how to speak to the administrative team in a hospital and how to interact with them and how to learn what, they kept saying buzzwords. And I was like, I know that means something, but I don't know what that means. And so they kept saying patient-centered care. And there were just like these things that were happening. And so I started reaching out to PA professionals and saying like, can anybody help me? I'm trying to navigate these waters and I feel like I'm in the dark in the business side of this and I just don't know what I'm doing. And so I started kind of talking, and I would say almost like email interviewing people, and I realized I wanted a place for that to go. So again, kind of like Becky, I wanted to share that journey, and so I just started working on the website, and I realized that there were like PA students that needed like certain resources, like emergency medicine resources, like what books I'll get the same questions over and over again. What books do you use to study, or what's your favorite, website for this or whatever. So I was just starting to like keep track of it in a place, which is what Empowered PAs ended up being. So that's kind of how it started. And then it's just kind of grown from then because of a lot of things, but the pandemic being one of them. Now we do, monthly webinars and events, and hopefully that will grow too. That's kind of what my vision for the future is we do more of these kinds of events where we have lots of PAs at different parts of their career. We have our pre-PA virtual shadowing events, but also, we do, hopefully we'll be doing PA community chats and other kind of support events. I love talking about working in a non-clinical role now that I've been doing it for a couple of years. So. But yeah, that's how it started.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's been a journey, and we started kind of playing with the podcast thing, and I was like, I'll dabble in this and just see if I like it, and I do. It's just hard. It's like, and this is the plight of a practicing PA, right? It's just time is precious, and probably a couple months ago, I realized I was like, I need some people. I need some help. So I'm so glad to have both of you on with me. I'd like, it's really important. One of the things that's like core tenet of me personally, but I think you guys as well, I think I'm speaking for you, is that this is about our community, right? It's not about me as a practicing PA. It's not about us individually. It is about forming and having the community to support each other. As we move through the pandemic, medicine is shifting. We are at a very interesting, time where things are going to be very different. And I like to focus on self-care and wellness now, because I can tell you that I've been through that burnout phase. I'm kind of back in it again. And so those are the topics that I'm excited and focusing on, which is why I'm really excited that Becky, you can kind of speak to the pre-PAs and help, get them through their struggles. And Chris, to have you kind of helping with the PAs who are practicing, maybe looking to transition their roles or even advocate, they don't know how. So you guys are awesome. I'm so glad to have you with us. And this is so exciting. I'm glad to get on YouTube and finally kind of get something going here too. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely excited to be a part of it. And I, in a million years, never dreamed this. I've made so many good connections, so many good friends on just by networking, just by being polite and asking questions and seeing if they had time. And if they didn't, not being upset, I'll go ask another, PA. And so I think that's one of the other reasons why I'm so passionate about this profession. And I'm kind of biased, but I think it's the best profession. But I have a good team behind me here at home, and knowing that even at school, now that we are back on campus, I even had a couple students reach out to me that they found me on Instagram and they saw me on campus, and they're like, hey, I follow you on Instagram and I'm interested in this and that and the other. And it was just so amazing to be recognized, but for a good thing, not something silly that I did on TikTok, not that I'm on it, but it was just, they're like, oh, what major do you think I should do? And I pointed them, I said, hey, I don't know. I said, but we have some of the best pre-health advisors. And I gave them the information, and we truly, really do. And I realized how important that could be at a university. And I've talked to other pre-Ps where that's not a thing, and it's heartbreaking, because pre-health advisors are really kind of can guide you. So this has definitely been amazing. The pandemic has been terrible. It continues to be terrible, especially here in my home state of Texas. But I love that I've been able to come out of it with being part of Empowered PAs. Is definitely like amazing. I love it.
You know, Becky, what's interesting that you mentioned, and we've all mentioned it at some point tonight, but you know, the social media, the Instagram aspect of everything, and the pandemic has really normalized this, whether it's webinar, whether it's, Zoom, all the, telemedicine, and then the social media. Whereas at first, social media was just like a toy, like a fun place to hang out, or share all your plates of food or whatever, right? Some of the cool things you were doing. But it was funny. You ran into it. You're talking about on campus that you ran into folks that knew about your, Instagram. And this summer, the same thing happened to me. I was at the summer conference for the Florida Academy of PAs, and someone said, "Oh, do you know Christopher Watson?" And he goes, "Well, I follow him on Instagram, but we've never met." And it was funny. I was like, wow, it really has come to that, because I kind of feel the same way. It's like I've connected with some of these people. I feel like I've connected with some of these people, following, even chat sometimes, DMs or comment and stuff, and they comment back and forth on some of our stuff on social media. And then it's finally, you meet them in person, you see them, oh, hey, yeah. I mean, glad to finally meet you, but we've interacted so much on social media. So I think this is very interesting how you've got your connections and you speak about that. And then, we all have the same story now. And like I said, I've connected with so many people now, like now, Jono in Portland, was it Portland?
Jono.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. He said, it's like, oh yeah, now I know PAs in Portland, Oregon.
Yeah. That's it. So it's so funny because even maybe a year ago, I had been talking to some of the other leaders in the profession, and I was saying that like social media is an amazing tool to connect, right? Like when we were, Chris, I don't know if you could say, but when I was a PA student or pre-PA, there was not another soul that was why
I knew one person, because I went to athletic training school with him, and he came back and gave a lecture during Iceland and said, "Hey, I'm in PA school. Do y'all know what that is?" And I'm like, No.
Nobody knows. I think that's why the profession's growing too, right? People are kind of more aware, and they know kind of that it exists, but they want to learn more. And so they kind of search on social media and they follow people that kind of speak up about the profession. So it's awesome. I'm really glad you both are on there, and that's how we kind of connected. So yeah. While I'm thinking about it, what are your handles? Because people are going to ask me later. So what's your handle, Becky? And what's your handle, Chris?
My handle is at Mrs. Popiel, so it's MRSPOPIEL, so it's Mrs. and then my last name. I feel like it's too late to change it now, because I've seen apparently people have been posting on Reddit. They're like, oh, I did like a general search for my handle, and it came up on some Reddit pages, and people are like, go follow this person's page. She has all this stuff, and I'm like, well, I guess I can't change it now because it would be too much. So yeah, so Mrs. Popio on Instagram, you'll find me.
Perfect. And Chris?
So mine's at Chris_Watson_PA.
Perfect. Yep. And then I'm at Empowered PAs, and you can find we are going to be having all of these posts on EmpoweredPAs.com, on the blog, on our podcast. And if you're interested in joining these events in the future, our live events, they will be on patreon.com/empoweredpas. So I just wanted to kind of throw those plugs out while I'm thinking about it, because we do need to wrap this up. Are there any final thoughts from you guys about kind of what the future holds for everyone?
I don't have necessarily any no, I'm just excited, and I think it's going to just evolve and grow, and I'm excited to see how this is going to continue to grow.
Same thing. Of course, I'm excited to see where my journey takes me. I do have a plan if I don't get in this cycle. I have a research job lined up, and so I think it's all great things coming. I feel just like with I've waited 17 years. If I don't get in this year, what's another year? So I'm definitely excited to be part of this great project that is Empowered PAs, and pouring my heart and soul into it, because I feel like I have a lot to say from a very interesting perspective. And so I'm definitely excited about that.
You both do. I'm very excited. Well, thank you guys. Thank you for those that are listening or watching or reading, because hopefully these will be blog posts as well. We're really excited. Hopefully we can get some more content out for you more regularly. And thanks for joining us. Have a good night.
Thank you, Courtney.
Hey.
Thank you, Chris. Y'all have a good night.
Yeah, good night.